You've got dirty money. Here's how criminals actually make it look squeaky clean, and why 42 seconds wasn't nearly enough to tell you the whole story. Every year, somewhere between $800 billion and $2 trillion gets laundered through the global financial system. That's the UN's own estimate, and it's a guess, because the entire point of laundering is to make dirty money disappear from view. It happens in 3 stages: placement, layering, integration. We covered the basics fast. Now, let's actually go inside each one. Why dirty money is a problem in the first place. Here's something that surprises people. Having a pile of illegal cash isn't actually the hard part of crime. Spending it is. If you sell drugs, run a fraud scheme, or take a bribe, you end up with cash or funds that can't be explained. You can't deposit $200,000 in a bank account with no job to justify it. You can't buy a house with a duffel bag of 20s without someone asking where it came from. Dirty money is actually a liability. It's evidence sitting right there until it's converted into something that looks legitimate. That conversion process is money laundering. And it happens in 3 stages: placement, layering, and integration. Stage 1. Placement. Funnel that cash into fake businesses like empty cafes or shady car washes. Here's why that specific kind of business, and not just any business. A car wash charges cash, has wildly unpredictable daily totals, and nobody's ever surprised if Tuesday made $400 and Wednesday made $4,000. That unpredictability is the whole point. You can mix illegal cash in with real earnings, deposit it all together, and a bank teller has no way to know that $3,000 of today's total came from actual customers and $5,000 came from somewhere else. Same with an empty cafe, half full at best, but the register somehow says otherwise every single night. This is the riskiest stage for criminals, because it's the point where dirty cash is most directly connected to wherever it actually came from. So there are other placement tricks too. Structuring, where you break one large deposit into a bunch of smaller ones, each kept under $10,000. The threshold that triggers automatic bank reporting in the US. Or money mules. Regular people who deposit smaller amounts into their own personal accounts for a cut of the action, spreading the risk across dozens of ordinary-looking transactions instead of one suspicious one. Once the money is sitting inside a bank account, it stops being a pile of suspicious cash. It's just a number on a screen now. That's the first transformation, and it's the one everything else depends on. Stage 2. Layering. Move the money around. Offshore accounts, fake loans, cryptocurrency, you name it. This is the most complex stage, and it's where the real engineering happens. The goal isn't to hide the money. It's to move it so many times through so many accounts, banks, and countries that no single transfer looks suspicious, and the original source becomes basically impossible to trace. Let's go through the 3 tools from the short, one at a time. Offshore accounts. Money moves into a jurisdiction with strict bank secrecy laws, where local rules make it hard for outside investigators to even ask who owns the account, let alone where the money came from. Fake loans. One shell company lends money to another shell company the same person secretly controls. On paper, it's a completely normal business loan, with real repayment terms and real paperwork. In reality, it's the same money moving from one of your pockets to another, dressed up as a legitimate financial obligation. Cryptocurrency. Money converts into crypto, moves through multiple wallets and exchanges, some in countries with weak reporting requirements, then converts back into cash or another asset. Crypto didn't invent layering, but it added a new tool to a very old playbook. Shell companies tie all of this together. A shell company exists on paper, a name, a registration, sometimes a bank account, but no real operations, no employees, no actual product. Its only job is to receive and send money, creating the appearance of ordinary business activity, transfer after transfer, until the pattern becomes too tangled to easily follow. Stage 3. Integration. Buy legit stuff. Real estate, art, businesses. Now it looks like you've been rich all along. This is the payoff stage, and it's worth sitting with why it works. By this point, the money has passed through enough legitimate-seeming transactions that it now looks like normal business revenue, investment returns, or property sale proceeds. You can spend it openly. Buy a house, fund a company, walk into an art auction, without anyone asking a single question, because on paper, every dollar has a plausible, legal origin story. Real estate is a favorite for a reason. It's expensive enough to absorb huge sums in one transaction. Prices are subjective enough that nobody blinks at a generous purchase price. And once you own the property, you can resell it later for money that's now one full transaction cleaner than before. Art works similarly. A $2 million painting doesn't come with a receipt proving what it's really worth, which makes it a nearly perfect vehicle for finishing the wash cycle. Once money reaches integration, it's functionally indistinguishable from money you earned legally. That's the entire point of the three-stage process. Not to hide the money forever, just long enough to give it a new, clean identity. Why it's so hard to stop. Here's the structural problem underneath all of this. Money laundering depends on access to the financial system, and banks are that access point. Large international banks process enormous volumes of transactions every day. Compliance teams are supposed to flag suspicious activity, but the sheer scale makes it easy for laundering schemes to blend in, especially when they're specifically designed to look like ordinary business. Smaller banks and foreign branches are often targeted specifically because they have weaker oversight and fewer resources dedicated to compliance. A case like HSBC's $1.9 billion fine in 2012 for allowing drug cartel money to move through its systems shows how even a major global bank can become a weak link, sometimes through willful blindness, sometimes through simple failure to connect the dots across its own branches. And because laundering schemes deliberately cross borders, stopping them requires coordination between multiple countries' law enforcement and financial regulators, which is slow and gives money time to keep moving. Remember, every trail leaves clues. Law enforcement is always watching. Money laundering. It's not just dirty, it's illegal. That line closed our original short in 42 seconds. Here's what it actually means once you understand all three stages. Every single transfer in this entire process, every shell company, every offshore wire, every crypto conversion, every real estate purchase, creates a paper trail somewhere. Placement, layering, and integration don't erase the trail. They just spread it out across enough banks, borders, and legal entities that following it requires real cooperation between investigators in multiple countries. That's exactly why cases like HSBC's, fined $1.9 billion in 2012 for letting drug cartel money move through its systems for years, take so long to unravel. The mechanism is simple in concept. Untangling it in practice is not. If you want to see this exact playbook used on something other than cash, we've also covered how the same layering techniques get used to smuggle physical goods. Check out our chip smuggling series next. Subscribe for more real, current financial crime cases and the mechanics behind how they actually work.